So today I had the pleasure of seeing Marvel Studios' new film, Captain America Civil War. To call this film a masterpiece would be understating it. Everything about this film works really well. The writing, the characters, every character in this film, and I mean every character that is in this film gets a time to shine. And every character in this film has an arc of their own. The movie is adapted from Marvel Comics event Civil War, but is very loosely adapted since they had to change a few things since they don't own all the rights to their characters or they own part rights and everything, but some of it works, and the stuff they've had to rewrite actually fills the story in more than it did in Civil War. Me personally think Civil War didn't end very well, and I know a lot of people agree with me, and the characters in it basically became good versus evil. This movie doesn't do that. This movie says there is no good and evil sides to this whole Sokovia Accords Civil War government sort of thing. Each side has their own wrongs and rights, positives and negatives, and no side is right, basically. And you end up rooting for both sides at different times in the movies, which I think is what the Russos and the writers plan was. You at one part you're like, yeah, Iron Man is right about this. Next part, Captain America's right. It is the way they've blended this film together is absolutely amazing. The story is about an incident that happens, or a series of incidents that happens within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, building back from all the way from the first Avengers where Loki attacked New York, then we have Ultron, then we have the Washington DC event in Captain America 2, and it all comes to a head when the new Avengers track Crossbones to Lagos, and in doing so he becomes a suicide bomber to basically try and kill Captain America, since he's after revenge for Captain America for dropping a building on him. And Wanda, Scarlet Witch, gets rid of the explosion, but she doesn't get rid of it in time, and it ends up destroying half a building. And the people in those buildings happen to be Wakandans, which comes into play later on in the film when the Sokovia Accords are announced, thanks to Stark being cornered by a woman after a MIT meeting that sort of shocks him into, like, what are they doing? Her son was an MIT graduate and everything, and he didn't want to, go to Vegas or anything. He wanted to go to Sokovia and help people, and he did, and the city ended up being dropped on him. And of course that was kind of the Avengers' fault and everything. And that's sort of like his eye-opener. It's sort of the similar in the comics when they're having the funeral for the people who died in Stanford, and a woman actually comes up to him and spits in his face, and she was one of the kids' mothers and everything, and that's sort of his wake-up call. This is his wake-up call, and it's very similar. They're very similar parts of this movie that were in the comics and vice versa. But yeah, that's sort of what sets up the whole thing, and it's not made any better when the Accords meeting that they have between the Wakandans and like all the UN is attacked by someone who seems to be the Winter Soldier, Bucky Barnes. Of course it isn't, we learn that later on in the film, but everyone now thinks it's Bucky, and obviously Cap doesn't think it is, and he won't sign this accord since it's basically what S.H.I.E.L.D. and the government wanted. Like when S.H.I.E.L.D. was Hydra, they wanted to control the heroes and make them do what they want. And as he says, people have agendas, and there's nothing stopping saying these people no to an event that they need to help out in, and they can't if these people say no. So he doesn't want to be under control by anyone. The bad guy of this film, well, I really wouldn't call him a bad guy, mainly because he's not in this movie very much, but when he is, he's a scene stealer. And that's Zemo, played by Daniel Bruhl. Absolutely amazing. I don't know why these critics were saying, like, he was like the negative of this film. He was absolutely amazing. His role, of course, in this Marvel Cinematic Universe has changed a little bit from his comic counterpart. In this, he was part of a Sokovian Special Forces death squad, and he was there during the Ultron attack on Sokovia, and he helped his family get out of town. It was all for naught because his family ended up dying once the city exploded in midair and everything. Their house in the hills got crushed, his father's house in the hills got crushed and everything, so he's vowed revenge against the Avengers, mainly like Captain America and all that, and sort of trying to break the team apart from the inside. Basically what Wanda Maximoff was told to do by Ultron in Age of Ultron. And he does it in a really brilliant way as well, like just playing them against each other. And you find out his ultimate goal, because whenever you see him on screen, like he's interrogating an old Russian general who used Winter Soldier for an event in December, which we find out was Howard Maria Stark's death, and how Bucky had his hand in that, and we actually see footage of that, and that plays later on in the film once Captain America and Iron Man have sort of come to terms with each other, and that that's sort of like the tipping point for Captain America, and I'll get to that a little later on. But yeah, he was absolutely fantastic in this film. I thought he was great, and he survives at the end, and that's basically what Kevin Feige was saying. Like, he's in this movie as sort of a setup for a later movie. I just don't know what he could appear in. Maybe like a Black Panther film, since him and Black Panther actually had a really, really good conversation in this film near the end of the film when Zemo's plans seemingly have gone awry, and he's actually about to kill himself, and Black Panther's there and sort of talks with him. And it's really great for Black Panther as well, because his role in this film and is absolutely amazing, played by Chadwick Boseman in this, absolutely amazing. He's played as a character who's just out for revenge, since he blames Bucky for his father's death, and he sees what Zemo has done, like what revenge has done to Zemo, and basically just made him a man who's out to kill and everything. And T'Challa doesn't want to be that. He wants to be the better man and sort of honor his father's dying wishes and everything. And it's absolutely amazing. Both those characters are stand out for me, especially like Black Panther, like in the fight scenes. Like, he was comic to screen, like just jumped from the comic basically. Absolutely amazing what the Russos did with his fight scenes, just jumping all over the place using his vibranium claws and suit and everything. His suit looks amazing as well. But yeah, absolutely amazing plot as well. Like, it was all well done as well. Like, we knew where everything was, we knew where we were going, like where we were in the film. There weren't any like random cuts to things like another big budget superhero movie that came out recently. Everything was established, we knew these characters, and that's like another thing about this film. Like, they didn't do this film second film in, had the heroes fight each other. This is 8 years down the track, and they make like a point of that in the movie as well, where Vision sort of says, it's been 8 years since Tony revealed himself as Iron Man, and since then all this stuff has been building up and building up. All these heroes have come out, which made all these villains come out. He says there's something there needs to be challenged by these villains, and the villains are coming out to challenge these heroes. And that's exactly what's happening. It's all been building up, and now it's come to a tipping point, and this is the tipping point, the Civil War. And it's fantastic. Like, everyone plays their roles really well, and I know a lot of people were thinking like, oh, now Iron Man's in this is just going to be Iron Man film, this is just going to be, Iron Man 4. It is definitely not Iron Man 4. The focus is clearly on Steve Rogers, Captain America. He's center, up front stage, Captain America's there, and he does have a couple of scenes in it and everything, and of course he's going to have a couple of scenes. It's Civil War, he's the opposing faction, and it just blends so well. No character really gets more screen time than the other, except for like Captain America, because it's his movie. And yeah, it absolutely blends well, really, really well, and starts to blend really well during the airport scene, which I think this is going to be one of those scenes that you're going to see on YouTube, like in 1080p, the full 13 to 14 to 15 minute fight that they have at this airport, which is every single Avenger just laying into each other. And it's funny because this scene, and I'll reference the Captain America Iron Man Bucky fight later on, but in this scene they all seem to be kind of pulling their punches since they're all friends. They don't want to hurt each other. They're just like, Iron Man's team want to arrest Cap's team and take them down and get them to sign the accords and everything, so they're pulling their punches, and Wanda makes a point of that as well. They're pulling their punches, but absolutely amazing, like the fight choreography, like who fights who and everything, and everyone in that fight gets a time to shine. And that's when we get to see Spider-Man. We see Spider-Man beforehand, and a lot of people also suspected that Spider-Man would just be one of those cameos where he just appears at that fight, and it's sort of like, oh hey guys, I'm here in this universe now, oh gotta go back to Queens and see Aunt May, and just disappear. He's actually in this movie for probably 15 minutes, maybe 10-15 minutes. We first see him as Peter Parker when Tony goes to get him when they're sort of low on reinforcements, and he goes to Queens and goes to Aunt May and Peter's apartment and sort of chats up Aunt May and makes a joke about how she's so young to be an aunt and everything. And then he reveals to Peter that he knows his secret and everything. That you get to see the webbing and like the web shooters and videos of him on YouTube fighting criminals and stopping cars from hitting buses and everything. And I thought that was really cool, since it shows like Spider-Man, how even though he's like this lanky sort of kid, everyone sort of expects him just to be sort of a pushover, but he's really strong, really, really strong. And it shows in this clip when he actually stops a car from hitting a bus, like he gets between them and like pushes them apart basically. And so this is a Spider-Man who's really strong, and I don't think we've ever seen that very much. And again, like same with Aunt May, they're doing her younger, whereas in the last two reboots she's been really old. Like in the Raimi movie, she was literally an old woman. She had that whole scarf around the head, sort of hunched over look, clutching her handbag sort of look. And then in The Amazing Spider-Man, she was a little bit younger, but she was still fairly old and everything. Now she's like 35 years old, I think. The Spider-Man in this is absolutely amazing. They got him down 100%. His time in the fight, and he was there for the whole fight basically, up until when Iron Man and that try to find Captain America getting to the Quinjet. Like he's there for the entire fight, and he's, you know, going around stopping all the Avengers and like Cap's team and everything. He has a really cool moment with Bucky and Falcon when they're like fighting inside this terminal. They're like throwing stuff at each other, and he's like throwing quips at them and everything, and he's like webbing their hands to stuff and everything. It's really cool. Also, Ant-Man is in this film, which is really cool. It's sort of teased in his movie at the end of his movie. Again, like Paul Rudd, like he's someone I don't suspect to be a superhero. Like Paul Rudd's a superhero now. Like I still think of him as that guy who was in the 40-Year-Old Virgin and like Anchorman and all that. Like you don't expect that, and he was really amazing in this. He doesn't get quite a few lines, but he does get in on the action, and the action he has is absolutely awesome. Like when he first appears, you don't see him in the fight because he's actually hiding inside Captain America's shield, and when Spider-Man takes it, he ends up whipping Spider-Man's ass to get the shield back. And then during the fight, he throws those little disc things that Pym made for him, and he crashes like a tanker truck into War Machine, and a little quip about how he thought it was a water truck and everything. And then he tries to be Giant Man. He grows giant into giant. He's got like this cool thing on his new suit that allows him to like play with the capacitator thing that's on his belt, and it turns him into a giant. And it's absolutely amazing that it's not just they turn him into a giant, they also do the physics around that. So like when he's small, he's really fast because he's like a bullet and everything, but when he's really big, his mass is really big, so he moves really slowly, and it shows in this film. I'm so glad that they kept physics like that. I was kind of thinking that, oh, maybe they will, maybe they won't, and then I'm like, it's Marvel, of course they're able to research like quantum physics and everything for this. And yeah, he's like really slow and everything, and Spider-Man manages to take him down. But before that, he gets a really cool part where he actually gets on Hawkeye's bow, and they fire him into Iron Man's armor, and he starts pulling apart the armor, and Tony's like, who's that voice inside my head? And he's like, oh, it's your conscience, we don't talk very often and everything. Absolutely hilarious. And again, Hawkeye in this film is really great as well. We get references to his family and everything. Like he wasn't in there to begin with because he'd actually retired, but he came back when Cap called him to help get Wanda out of the Avengers compound that she was confined to by Vision, and he went and helped her get out of that. And him and Vision had a little cool fight where he stands no chance against Vision. Vision can obviously phase in and out of existence and everything, and he's trying to hit him and everything. But he had a cool weapon where when he was rescuing Wanda, where he fired like 2 arrows that sort of ran like an invisible string across it, and it sort of electrocuted Vision when he went through it and sort of made him phase in and out, and he couldn't take a solid form and everything. I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, everyone in this film is really cool. I really enjoy everyone's role. Scarlet Witch had a really cool, like using her powers to fly and like throw Captain America really far and everything, and Black Widow doing more of a climbing all over people jiu-jitsu sort of thing. I don't know really what it's called, but it's really cool. And she ends up turning into Cap's team as well, sort of letting them escape the airport and everything, which is really cool. Rhodey also gets a little bit of time to shine in the fight. We get to see that baton he uses, which I think ends up getting broken by Scarlet Witch. I'm not too sure. Scarlet Witch or Hawkeye, I can't really remember. But he gets a little bit of time to shine. He actually gets crippled in the film as well. It was sort of like a mistake by Vision, who was kind of distracted by what was happening with Wanda and everything, that he accidentally fires at War Machine, and it like blasts the front of it. It's in the trailer, it like blasts the front of his chest off, and he falls to the ground, and then falling to the ground he like shatters his spine so he can't walk. So at the end of the movie, he's got like these cool sort of Iron Man-ish sort of leg restraints that helping him walk and everything. Tony's like helping him walk and everything. But yeah, really cool. Again, Black Panther is amazing. Agent 13, she didn't really appear in the movie. She was sort of like she was working for the CIA, so she was sort of feeding information to Steve and everything. And Steve finally actually learns that she is Sharon Carter. He learns that at Peggy's funeral, of all places, really sad place. And what was really cool is that the line that she was saying is a line from the Civil War book that Captain America had about planting yourself like a tree in a river and not moving and telling everyone else to move. And I thought that was really great that she actually got it, because it's at a moment where Steve is sort of like mulling over if he should sign or not, and then this sort of like reinforces it, and it helps that thing that she was saying about the tree and in the river is something that Peggy told her, so it sort of resonates with Steve a little bit more since it was someone he knew and loved, basically saying it through her to him. I thought that was really cool and really good use of it. I didn't think as well, like, wouldn't have been a really good chance for him to say it anyway, like, he'd have to, like, stop and make a speech. And he didn't actually stop at all in this film, really. But yeah, absolutely amazing film. I thought it was really great. The ending was great as well. It sort of put everyone in place for, like, I guess Infinity War, or like, what's going to happen next and everything. Obviously, like, Tony Stark is going to be in the new Spider-Man film, so he's going to be helping Peter a little bit more and everything, since Peter got the costume from him. I guess he's gonna want favors or something, maybe help him be a better hero and everything. Bucky, spoiler alert, in the end credits, he's taken to Wakanda and put under cryosleep. In the Iron Man fight and Captain America fight, he actually lost his arm when he tried to pull Tony's arc reactor out of his chest. He actually lost his arm in that, and so he's like going under because the Hydra programming with the code words and everything that were used in this movie is still in his head, and they could be activated by anyone who talks to him. So he needs to like go under before anyone can do that, and so they can figure out how to like get it out of his head and everything. And Steve sort of breaks everyone out of the raft, and that's another really cool thing. Like, instead of using the negative zone, which was used in the Civil War comic, and obviously they couldn't use it because that's tied up with like Fantastic Four and all that. They had the raft in there, and the raft is just like this massive facility underwater, and it raises up out of the water, and there's a prison cell, and there's an absolutely fantastic scene where Tony goes there, and this is after the airport fight, and all the Avengers are in there, all the like Cap's team except for Cap and Bucky, they managed to escape, and he's just getting like chewed out by Hawkeye. He's calling him a futurist and like, oh look, here's the great futurist Tony Stark. He was right, guys. And then like Scott has a go at him saying like, Pym was right about you, Starks. And Tony's like, who are you again? And then Scott is like really deflated about that and everything. And I thought that was a neat little thing, and it ends with Steve breaking them out. And the cool thing is that a lot of people were predicting Captain America's death, and in a way Captain America did die. He didn't die physically, like Steve didn't get shot or killed or anything, but Captain America as a hero, as a symbol and all that is dead now. He doesn't even have the shield anymore since he left it with Stark in Siberia, since Stark's saying like it's the shield is government property and all that sort of stuff. So he dumped the shield with Stark and everything. So technically he did die, like it's symbolic and everything. He did technically die, which I thought was great. They didn't like harp on it or anything and like make a big deal about it. It's just sort of one of those things that you might pick up and you might not. Doesn't really matter or anything. And it's going to be interesting to see what he does coming up, especially in the most recent episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and I guess Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. spoilers as well, where Coulson had one of those holographic shield that Cap had when he lost his shield, the sort of wrist bracelet one that sort of projects the Captain America shield. He had one of them for a shield, like an actual Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. shield. So I wonder if like maybe he might get one of them for Infinity War when he's fighting Thanos or something. That would be really cool. Or like an even better shield from T'Challa or something, since T'Challa's helping him out. It's going to be really interesting to see like all these characters go, since the Russos have said that they're not too sure what's happening with Captain America. Like, he's going to be Infinity War. They don't know because they haven't seen the scripts yet, and they're seeing him very soon, but they're really excited to find out what's going to happen to him, since they've put him in this place that could lead anywhere and everywhere. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what's going to be happening next, especially after this film, which is quite a game changer in the comic book movie universe in general. Is absolutely amazing, like what they were able to do with all these characters, and it doesn't feel overbearing at all. It's always, you're never bored basically. And the biggest thing with me is this movie was fun. It was absolutely fun. It was serious when it needed to be serious, like the end fight with Captain America and Iron Man and Bucky. Like, that was brutal as fuck, like absolutely brutal. Like, Tony Stark actually on the warpath trying to kill someone is scary. Like, he's so scary. It was funny when it was needed to be funny, had levity and everything, and it was great. It was absolutely fantastic. I'm going to give this movie a 10 out of 10.